a very simple topic, which we see day in and day out as practicing physicians. So we are going to take about the ultrasound. If once we see a fatty liver, what to do? It's a common scenario we all face. So this is mainly for the general practitioners and physicians and diabetologists who will come across this diagnosis. So you will frequently have patients who will come to you with either an ultrasound report of fatty liver, which is done mostly as part of a diabetic evaluation or as part of a master health checkup, and then what to do with it. So a 15 to 20-minute presentation, and then we'll have more discussion and interactions because we know most of the people who are here. So this one will be the typical picture with which people come. You know, a 46-year-old male, he's working in IT, he's in middle management, he undergoes some master health checkup, and then the ultrasound shows fatty liver. So he will come to you saying, doctor, what should I do? There is fatty liver. What should be done? That will be the common question. Is there any medication to reverse it? Am I going to have problems? So is it going to cause liver damage? That is the most important question people will ask. So why this topic was chosen? So obviously this is very common. So it can be anywhere between in India. We know that obesity is becoming an epidemic in the world, and the Indian data. So Indian data says that this fatty liver can be anywhere between 15 to 30% in the general population. So in the Western, the Amarapurka study, Singh is from North and West, and then the Mohan study from South. It is anywhere between 15 to 30%. And in diabetics, the fatty liver can go as high as 40 to 50% also. So it is a very common diagnosis in our part of the population. The second thing is that this fatty liver can lead to end-stage liver disease, or rather what we call a cirrhosis or a decompensated liver disease in a subset of people. So the idea is to find out, is everybody going to have the liver disease, or only a small group of people who are going to have liver? That is a worry which patients have. And most of the time, when as hepatologists or transplant hepatologists, we see patients who come with, decompensated liver disease, refer for transplant, and they say they have had no problems. They'll be 58-year-old, 60-year-old, just going to retire. Now he has DCID, they say you need transplant. Oru problem illa doctor. Or fatty liver mattum irundhuchu sonnanga, that's all. So was the fatty liver, did that lead to this? So that is the key question. So the talk will be mainly on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, but then we also know that when somebody has fatty liver, the most common cause will be either an alcohol or a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So every patient with a fatty liver needs to be asked that question. Does he take alcohol? That is an important question we need to ask. So how do we define non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? Accumulation of more than 5% of fat in the liver in the absence of significant alcohol intake. So that is the key definition. So if there is a patient can be taking alcohol, then it is a fatty liver from alcohol. To say it is non-alcoholic, that means there should not be any significant alcohol intake. So significant alcohol intake is also defined. It is generally considered to be more than 20 grams. So more than 20 grams means when some of you would know that 10 gram of alcohol is equal to 240 ml of beer or a 30 ml of whiskey. So more than 2 drinks per day is generally considered to be significant. So we need to ask that question. So, but this fatty liver, especially this non-alcoholic fatty liver, it's a spectrum. So it can be either a fatty liver, or we have what we call as a non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. So steatohepatitis means there is also an inflammation. So there is a spectrum of disease involved in this. And now this term is also being redefined because we know that this fatty liver disease is associated with other metabolic syndrome. Other metabolic syndrome means obesity will be there, diabetes will be there. They will have other parts of the metabolic syndrome like hypertension, dyslipidemia, their waist circumference will be more. I'm not going into the details of it, but at least we should be aware that this term may be used like in the future. So it can be familiar with that, it can be called as metabolic dysfunction associated fatty liver disease. And most of our people will have some alcohol once or twice a week. So we cannot always differentiate whether this fatty liver is from, pure alcohol or from the non-alcoholic disease. So this spectrum of this fatty liver, so either it could be a simple fatty liver, that means there is only accumulation of fat in the liver, there is no liver injury. But in some people, it can cause inflammation. And we know once there is inflammation, there is scarring. So this scarring, that is fibrosis, what leads to problems. Okay, to some extent, it may be reversible, but when it continues, that is the inflammation and scarring continues, then it leads to cirrhosis. At that time, the liver is completely replaced by the scar tissue, and it is called as the cirrhosis. Now, along with this fatty liver, NASH, and cirrhosis, it does not just stop with there. So we have to know to what extent it is reversible and to what extent it is not reversible. So from a healthy liver, we have a fatty liver here, and then some patients may develop inflammation, that is NASH. This is still reversible. So all the blue arrows are reversible. Some patients from there, they can go on to have fibrosis. So even fibrosis, early stages of fibrosis is reversible. So here also it is reversible, but then some can progress to cirrhosis. And from the cirrhosis, some can progress to cancer, that is hepatocellular cancer. So we know that hepatitis B is a common cause for hepatocellular cancer, but even without that, NASH itself is a significant cause of hepatocellular cancer. And there are a subgroup of people who can develop HCC even without the development of cirrhosis. So there is a huge spectrum of diseases, and all these events happen over years. So if we can identify any of these diseases in midway, so so then we can take more aggressive steps to to intervene, to stop the progression. So we need to know to what it is reversible and to what it is not reversible. And I'm not going into the pathogenesis of it, much of it. So this natural history of this fatty liver disease, we all need to know, like how much of the people will worsen, who are likely to remain stable. So generally, the general numbers, if see if somebody has a fatty liver, 70 to 75% of them will have only isolated fatty liver. That means they are not going to progress, and there is no increased risk of death compared to general population. So that is why so we need to identify these people so that we can reassure them and just ask them to lose weight. That means they are not at risk of a progressive liver disease. But there is around 1/4 or 1/3 of people who can progress to NASH. And this NASH, this subgroup of patients will develop into cirrhosis. Now, let's see, around 20 to 25% of patients, over 10 to 15 years, this progresses, this NASH cirrhosis. And this cirrhosis can cause HCC around 7% over 6 years. And this cirrhosis also, they can remain compensated over 7 to 10 years. That means they have cirrhosis, but they have no idea that they have liver disease because there is no symptoms of liver failure. But then they can progress to decompensation. So this is how patients will actually come to. That means they develop ascites. Decompensation means they have ascites, they have jaundice, or they have encephalopathy, they are bleeding. So from the time they have fatty liver to the time they have a decompensated liver disease, it can be anywhere between 15 to 20 years. So this is a slowly progressive disease. But unfortunately, we see patients only at this stage. So when we have a fatty liver, we need to find out who are the people who are going to progress to NASH, or who are the people who are having fibrosis. Because in them, we need to have more aggressive lifestyle changes, more aggressive interventions. So when we see a fatty liver, the question we need to ask is this a simple fatty liver, that is simple steatosis, or is there significant inflammation and fibrosis? That means, is there NASH with advanced fibrosis? That is the question we need to ask when we see somebody with a fatty liver. So many of you would be aware, that means when we say cirrhosis, before that there are 4 stages of fibrosis. This is a histological classification. So it is from F0 to F4, we would have studied in pathology. So F4 is cirrhosis. Okay, F0 means no fibrosis. So there are 4 stages of fibrosis. So F0, F1 is generally considered to be very little fibrosis. Anything more can be considered as advanced. So F3, F4 is cirrhosis. So the reason we say this is because we have some imaging modalities by which we can diagnose the various stages of fibrosis to a reasonable extent. So is there advanced fibrosis? So how do we find out? So there are some ways by which we can find out by blood test, and then we have imaging. So recently we have what we call as the transient elastography. So I see that some more people have joined in between. I hope they are able to follow this. And if there is any question, we can stop in between and we can discuss also. How do we, can we diagnose, if there is fibrosis by just blood tests alone? So so one thing we need to know here is that most of the patients with cirrhosis can have almost normal blood tests. So the presence of normal blood test does not exclude cirrhosis. That is one thing we need to know. So this also, Vadivel is here, he would also know. So most of the time, they will, when they come with DCLD, they will say, I had a test last year, I had a test previous year. That time your tests were told to be normal. So only a minor elevation might have been there. So it would not even have been recognized as abnormal. So presence of normal blood test does not exclude cirrhosis, but there are some pointers toward that. So something like if there is a low platelets less than 150, so that is a marker of high grade fibrosis. And then we look at SGOT SGPT ratio, that is AST ALT ratio. Normally the ALT is slightly higher in the liver disease, whereas if the AST is more than the ALT, that means SGOT is more than SGPT, then also we need to think of whether there is presence of cirrhosis or not. Apart from this, we have some scores, online scores. So apart from this, we have some online scores which can help us. So most of you should get familiar with this. With these, especially the scores like NAFED fibrosis score and FIB4 score. So now these two scores are now, as per guidelines, it is advised for all general practitioners in the West. So, when they see a fatty liver, they are asked to do this score. So there is an online calculator and they are asked to do this score. And if the score is very low, that means there is very low likelihood of advanced fibrosis. That means they can be managed in a general practitioner setting with lifestyle management. But if the score is on the higher side, that means they are likely to have higher grade of fibrosis. Then they need further tests. And there are some specialized tests which also looks at all the inflammatory markers. So I can show you some, how this NAFLD and FIB4 score looks. So, if there will be either a direct calculators, or if you go to this MD Calc, where all the calculators are there. So there will be something like this. So, all the parameters you need to type in. So let's say if there is a 55-year-old man, and then, his AST is 40. And then his platelet.
Hema, that calculator is not being seen.
It's not being seen. So then I have to change this sharing. Okay, no problem. I will go back to that later. Maybe because I wanted to go directly on the Google and do it, Chrome and do it. So you can just fill in the values and it will give you a values. So like if it is more than minus 1.4. So that means there is presence of high-grade fibrosis. If it is more than 1.3, if it is FIB4, I'll go back later to the Google and I'll show you once. So that means, so you can have an idea whether he is going to have high-grade fibrosis or not. High-grade fibrosis means and he is going to have more complications in the future. Now, apart from this, now we have another good tool which is there for almost last 20 years, what we call as the transient elastography. So this is called as the liver stiffness measurement. So we know that normally the liver is soft, and with the scarring and fibrosis, the liver progressively becomes stiff. So like a routine ultrasound, there is a probe which sends in ultrasound waves, and it measures an area of about 5 into 1 centimeter. So it's a broad area. So it measures that area. It passes ultrasound wave and the speed at which it goes and comes back, so that it measures in kilopascals. So normally it will take some time to go and come back, whereas if it is a stiff liver, the velocity of that wave will be very fast. So it will give the results in kPa or kilopascals, and we can know the higher the value, the stiffer is the liver. Otherwise, usually to know this fibrosis, the gold standard, as I told you before, is the liver biopsy. And liver biopsy has, even though we do it, but it is not acceptable to everybody. There is a needle prick, there is a risk of bleeding, and there is a cost involved. So, but this is a very non-invasive way of doing it. It can be repeated any number of times, and it actually measures a much broader area. It measures 100 times more than a biopsy, liver biopsy. So it measures a broad area and looks at the overall stiffness of the liver in that area. So how do we interpret the findings? So not only the stiffness, it also to a certain extent gives the fat content in the liver also. So as I told you that, that F0, F1, F2, F3, F4, F4 is cirrhosis. So when you look at those values in a transient elastography or any liver stiffness measurement like the FibroTouch or FibroScan, so values are normally from 2.5 to 75. And any value less than 7, so you can see that it is green, so that means there is very mild or no fibrosis. Whereas any value above 12.5 or 13 or 14, that means it is F4 or cirrhosis. And this machine is very accurate when at these extremes. That means when it is less than 7 and more than 13 or 14, it is most of the time it is correct, and you can very reasonably predict or rule out advanced fibrosis. So anything more than 12.5 to 13 is generally cirrhosis is likely. Less than 7, usually no advanced fibrosis is there. So with this, so as I told you, when the patient does, so as a cirrhosis is more than 14, but for a patient to develop decompensation, generally these values will have to reach something like 25 or 30. Then only they start decompensating. So you can detect the presence of cirrhosis in a patient many years earlier before they actually develop symptoms. So that is the key advantage of doing the liver stiffness measurement. It also talks about, it gives an information about the amount of fat in that. So it gives in decibels, that value is in decibels. And, based on that, we can tell like mild, moderate, or severe steatosis. That means whether mild means 10 to 30%, 30 to 60% will be moderate, more than 60% will be a severe steatosis. That information also we can get. So we can look at some, examples. So this is how the report will look. So if you look at the stiffness, that if here it is say 6.8, 6.8 is just below 7. So we can say that there is no advanced fibrosis. And this UAP, it's an attenuation parameter, which tells us the steatosis. So it says 255. So here, if you look here, comes in this area between 240 and 265. So this means he has a mild steatosis. That means less than 30% steatosis. So we can look at some examples, some real patients who had come to me. He's a 47-year-old male. He is working as an executive. He is a diabetic for last 5 years. So, he had fatty liver by ultrasound. His BMI was 28. His liver function tests were normal. His diabetes was under good control. But, he was really worried that his liver should not be affected. So he wanted to have his liver checked. And we did the liver stiffness assessment for him. So here, if you see it, so his stiffness is only 4.6. That means he has no fibrosis. So he was really happy that as of now, he does not have any fibrosis. There is not that much of steatosis also. So ultrasound may not always be correct also sometimes. So with this report, we can at least reassure him that, okay, his liver is as of now doing well, but that he should continue the lifestyle interventions. So that is the message we gave to him. This is another patient. So he's 48-year-old male. He's working in Bangalore. He has significant alcohol intake for last 20 years, and he wants to quit now. Okay, and he has been told that he has had fatty liver in the past. He's not a diabetic. His liver tests were a little bit high, and so he is anxious whether his liver is affected or not. So some of you can see this liver stiffness of 18. They can comment. If people want to comment, we can comment.
I think we can interact. Vadivel Kumaran is there. Venki? I think you can proceed.
Yeah. So, Vadivel is there. So. Okay, so no problem. I will continue. So here we can very well see that his liver stiffness is high. That means he has reached a stage of cirrhosis. He still has significant fat in the liver. Okay, but we are more concerned about the stiffness. So here we can see it is 18. So definitely he has reached the cirrhotic stage. So now I can tell him that he has reached the cirrhotic stage, but earlier we used to say that fibrosis is not reversible or cirrhosis is not reversible, but now we know that if the inciting insult is stopped, there can be some reversibility, or at least we can definitely stop the progression. So we have asked him to stop the alcohol completely, and we have to probably see him again after 6 months to 1 year. And definitely with stopping the alcohol, we do not know how much the stiffness value will improve. Definitely it may come down, but at least he will not go to the stage of decompensation. He will not go for any further progression. So so these values do not really tell the severity of his liver disease, but here we know that it is severe. And not just this, now we are very clear guidelines. You know that once a patient develops cirrhosis, they can have varices and all that. Can we predict with this? So yes, so now the guidelines have come that if the stiffness is more than 21 and his platelets are less than 150, that means there is high likelihood of significant portal hypertension. Those patients even need endoscopic screening. These patients are all asymptomatic. All these patients which I am talking now are all asymptomatic and it may be a few years before they develop decompensation. And this is another patient. So she had this lady, she was slightly obese, BMI of 30. Enzymes, if you look at this, so I hope some of you know that now, our enzymes values are redefined. So we generally, most labs will give 40 as an upper limit of normal, but for Indian standards, now we know that 31 to 32, maximum 35 is the upper limit. So anything more than that is itself high. So an SGPT of 42 is slightly high, and she had a fatty liver. Okay, so her father had cirrhosis, so she is worried whether she is going to have it. So she came for this liver stiffness measurement, and then luckily, her stiffness level was only 5.2. So she does not have advanced fibrosis. She has significant amount of fat. So we have advised her to lose weight, and at least she went home reassured, and that with the hope that if she brings down the fat, the obesity level, the liver fibrosis will not progress. This is another person with alcohol, again wanting to quit. His LFT was perfectly normal. His ultrasound was normal.
After eating, madam.
Hello? Yes?
Hello?
Yeah. இது presentation தெரிய மாட்டேங்குதா? Hello?
Is it visible?
Are the slides visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah, it is visible, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought somebody had asked. So again, this is another example of, another patient with significant alcohol intake. Again, you can say that his LFT was normal, ultrasound of normal, but his stiffness was 12. So there are some caveats here. This man was actively taking alcohol. So, when somebody is actively taking alcohol, sometimes they can have increased stiffness. But this still is quite high. 12 is still quite high. So we have advised him to quit alcohol. There is some fat here. So, so we get so much more information many years prior to the onset of severe liver damage. So when somebody comes with fatty liver, so this will be the key. So what next? First will be ask for significant alcohol intake, look for the metabolic syndrome, rule out other causes like, viral hepatitis. So anybody with elevated liver enzymes, always rule out viral hepatitis, especially B and C, which can be very easily done. So this paradigm of evaluation of liver stiffness and liver fibrosis apply for any chronic liver disease, not just for fatty liver. Even with hepatitis B or hepatitis C related liver disease, alcoholic liver disease, or other metabolic like Wilson's, all these disorders, it develops over many years. And if the primary insult can be stopped, this fibrosis or injury can reverse also. So we have seen that with even hepatitis C patients. So they will have viral load in millions, and they will have high grade fibrosis. We treat the viral hepatitis C, and then after 2 years we see that fibrosis has significantly regressed. So liver has an amazing capacity to regenerate. So this is the latest guideline which tells us what to do once you have a fatty liver seen by a primary healthcare. So always look for other causes: alcohol, hepatitis B and C. Rule out or rule in advanced fibrosis. So the 2 scores which are advised is FIB-4 or NAFLD fibrosis score, and I had given you the values. If it is very low values, you attempt lifestyle modification, exercise, correct, if he has diabetes, if he has hypertension, dyslipidemia, you correct all that. If the values are in intermediate to high risk, then you go for the second line referral. So at that time, you refer for the transient elastography or the liver stiffness measurements. So less than 7 or 8, low risk. Again, lifestyle interventions. If it is more than 8, then it is higher risk. And then, the hepatologist can decide whether any medications needs to be done. There are lots of therapeutic, research going on medications for NASH. We have some medications, but none of them is really as effective as lifestyle intervention as of now. Lots of medications are coming in. I'm sure in another 5 to 10 years, we'll have medications which will reverse the fibrosis. We don't have any yet. There are some medications, but they have some side effects. There are some, we have to use it with caution. So as of now, still the lifestyle intervention is the best option. And even in the latest, the American Diabetes Association guidelines, where they looked at the assessment of all the core modules like the cardiac, renal, neuropathy, everything. In that, they have also mentioned about the assessment of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And it says that any patient with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, if they have elevated liver enzymes or fatty liver by ultrasound, then you go for the assessment of liver fibrosis or the steatohepatitis. So the main take-home point, if you ask from here, is fatty liver is very common, one. Second, 70 to 80% of people, it will be benign. That means it is not going to cause any long-term liver damage. Our job as practitioners is to assess the presence of advanced fibrosis. And this can be done by some the online calculators and scores, or by the transient elastography. Always rule out other causes of abnormal liver function tests like alcohol, viral hepatitis B and C. Aggressive lifestyle management is a key to prevent the progression to cirrhosis. And what do you mean by aggressive lifestyle management? Yes, by diet, exercise, and our goal is to have a 7 to 10% of weight loss. And pharmacotherapy, yes, can be attempted, but the efficacy is still quite low. Thank you. I will share once that if it is there, that course which I tried.
Yeah, you can do that online calculator.
So yeah, so this Chrome is visible, no? So this is the
Yeah.
score. Okay, so this is the FIB score. So it is available on on its own, or you can go to this. Many of you may be aware of this MD Calc. It is available as app, which you can download in your mobile, and you can use all the calculator, like your BMI calculator, your creatinine, GFR, everything you can calculate in that. And in this, you can go for, suppose if it is a FIB-4, it is mainly meant for hepatitis C or B patients. You can use for NAFLD also. So let's see if you can fill in your value. So let's say a 45-year-old person, male person. So let's say his AST is 30, and or let's put AST is 50. His platelet count is 50. His alanine transfer is 30. So when you feed in these values, it will give like this. So it says 2.74. That means advanced fibrosis likely. So, so normally when we see an AST of 50 or ALT of 30, we are not very concerned, but then once you use this calculator, we know that he's likely to have, high grade. As a hepatologist, I know when AST is more than ALT, it is significant. Platelet just touching the border, I know he's likely to have high grade fibrosis. But when you use this calculator, it becomes very easy to, understand and when to refer and, when we can suggest lifestyle management itself. We also have this NAFED fibrosis score, which I mentioned. So if you see that, so that has, in addition, whether it takes into account the BMI and the fasting glucose. That means there is a diabetes. So this is specifically meant for, the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So let's say if we have a 47-year-old male patient and his BMI is 28. So if he is a diabetic, and then his AST is 35, his ALT is 25, and his platelet count is like 200, and his albumin is 4. So let me say AST ALT is like this. So it's 4. Oh, sorry, this albumin is gram. So sometimes this can happen. So now it is saying indeterminate score. So it is not normal, it is not very high. So this can happen. So around 30% of people can have this kind of indeterminate score. Again, we'll have to definitely evaluate these patients for a, by transient elastography and see if they have so you can easily see the ALT is very high. So we can easily guess that probably this patient may have, some amount of fibrosis. If you change the values, you can very well see, how it will be. Like somebody has it like this. If it's 20 and 25. Again, because of the BMI and the diabetes, it will say like this. Suppose we change this like this. There is no diabetes. His BMI is like 24. He's a 47-year-old male. Somewhere it is. So here it says F0. So it's very low. So in this patient, we know even if there is fatty liver, the likelihood of fibrosis is very low. So you can use this calculators in your patients, and then to a certain extent, we can take a decision whether it's going to be, whether he's likely to have advanced fibrosis or not.
So I will set the ball rolling for the questions. So if you would say for a general practitioner or a general physician, steps 1, 2, 3, 4 for fatty liver, how would you label that? How will you go about the process?
Okay, so I would say first, first ask the history for alcohol. Somebody brings an ultrasound report of fatty liver. The first question I will ask is, does he take alcohol? And especially significant amount of alcohol, like how I mentioned before. The second question will be to see his metabolic factors. So metabolic factors means, does he have obesity? Central obesity is there. Does he have hypertension? Does he have diabetes? Does he have dyslipidemia? So I will look into all those factors. That means they are at more, that means this fatty liver is related to the metabolic syndrome. Those are first two questions I will ask. Third will be is to assess if they have advanced fibrosis or NASH. And how I do that? I look at the liver function test, all the parameters, and I use those 2 scores to find out if he is likely to have any advanced fibrosis. And then the fourth step will be, if it is an indeterminate or in the advanced range, do a transient elastography, that is liver stiffness measurement like FibroTouch or FibroScan, so that we have a better idea as to where we stand. And also this will act as a baseline, so that once we do an intervention, especially lifestyle intervention at 6 months or 1 year, we can go and reassess whether it has been helpful or not.
So for every patient with fatty liver, you would do a liver function test, you would do a complete blood count, and then you will do a viral markers as well.
Yes,
Those are the basic tests.
Yes.
So the basic tests, that is what I wanted to convey. The basic tests probably for assessing a fatty liver are complete blood count, the liver function tests, and the viral markers. I think these will help you do the scores. You also, for doing the NAFL fibrosis score and calculating the diabetes, do you use fasting blood sugars or do you use the HbA1c or either of them?
So the NAFLD fibrosis score only asks whether it is a diabetic or not. And so diabetic or it's whether it's pre-diabetic. So that's all. So we need to just fill in that. So we don't have to use any values in that.
Mhm. But how are you going to decide that? Are you going to do it objectively, or are you just going to go by the history?
So we have to go by the definition of diabetes. So whether HbA1c more than 6.5 or fasting sugar more than 125, that's how we'll have to go.
So
So Janani can, Janani is there, she can tell about the diagnosis of diabetes, the current diagnostic guidelines. Janani is there.
Yes, ma'am.
So so when do we say pre-diabetes or when do we say diabetes?
Ma'am, just we have to do. Hello, can you hear me?
yeah. Dr. Janani, you are muted. Dr. Janani, you are muted.
Okay, we can, others can also join for us.
Yeah, if there's any question, please, this is open for discussion. It's an open forum. This is primarily aimed at education. So please feel free to interact. Any kind of question is most welcome. We are here to answer all your...
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr.
Yeah,
Janani,
there's some problem with my thing.
Okay.
Yes, sir, some problem with my mobile.
No problem, no problem.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear. We can hear you.
Yes, sir. Just if it is the patient newly comes, just we have to do the oral glucose tolerance test, sir.
Okay.
Just we have to do the 1 hour and 2 hours, and we can do the half-an-hour test also. Fasting 1 hour and 2 hours, 2-hour test. Is like fasting is less than 100. Fasting is less than 100. It is normal, and 1 hour is less than intermediate. That 1 hour is very important, and we have to see if it is below 155. If it is below, it is 155. Then it is normal. If it is above 155, there is some risk of diabetes. They are in the stage of pre-diabetes, and there is risk of diabetes. And 2 hours value, just we have to see. If it is below 140, it is normal. It is above 140 to 200, we have to take it as impaired glucose tolerance actually. So they are at the risk of diabetes. So we have to lifestyle management. It is above 200, and if the fasting is above 120, then we have to treat them. ADA says it is 110, and other guidelines says it is 120. So we have to treat accordingly, impaired fasting or impaired, or it is actually diabetes.
Thank you, Dr. Janani.
Okay.
We are.
This if it is impaired fasting and impaired glucose tolerance, we have to treat with the lifestyle management, sir. Or it is a diabetes, if we have to treat it accordingly. If the patient has gone into diabetes, we have to treat them accordingly.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. If the audience has any questions, you're most welcome to ask. With regard to fatty liver, we'll have it this time. And if you have any further questions or topics that you request, you can put it up in the chat box so we can meet up every other week. This will be an ongoing training program. It's much easier to do it electronically rather than meeting up in person nowadays. And we always have the recording, which we can share with you all so that you can go through the teaching process. We are very much interested in keeping family practitioners and general physicians in the latest updates in hepatology and hepatobiliary diseases.
So some of the topics we are planning to have is, interpretation of abnormal liver function test. So like what is a normal liver function test? What is abnormal? and how to interpret it, when to say, how to interpret the transaminitis, and how to interpret. The second is how to interpret the viral markers, HBsAg positive. So what to do if somebody comes with HBsAg positive? So we will do a case-based discussion. It will be only for 20 to 30 minutes. And then, you know, we will, from now onwards, we will put up the cases before so that you can go through it and become prepared, you know, so that we can have a, you know, more discussion, and, you know, so that all of us can benefit from that. So this is something called as community hepatology. There is something called as already community cardiology. So, you know, the managed basic management of cardiovascular risk factors by practitioners. So this is community hepatology. So most of the liver diseases can be managed at the, you know, at the GP level. At least they can be recognized and counseled and managed. Even nowadays, hepatitis C treatment, you know, it has become so simple that in US it is done by, you know, nurse practitioners or general practitioners in remote area, and only the specialist consultation is required only on an online basis. You know, so treatment has become so simple, just like, you know, tuberculosis. So things are quite evolving in the field of hepatology. There's lots of new advancements. So as family practitioners, we want all of you to catch up with that and then, you know, join in that.
Dr. Thangadurai, is there any questions? Kyle, if there are any questions.
So if you can also let us know any other topic which you are interested, either you can send it to us. I can give you my phone number now, or to Dr. Ilango, or to Mr. Riaz anytime. And, you know, we will include that in the next topics. So I can my.
And yeah, even we can do a bit of case discussions or imaging discussions. Dr. Hema's phone number is there on the chat box, and please feel free to contact us anytime. We will also send a link of this recording, and we'll upload it into YouTube so that those who are interested can always look it up in the future as a part of the learning process. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We would also encourage everybody to bring their own cases, you know. So actually, when you have your own cases, so it's not just you who benefit. If there are around 8 people or 10 people, everybody benefits from that case discussion. So let's say if I'm going to talk about hepatitis B, so I'm sure you would have seen some cases with hepatitis B. So you can bring that up before itself. You can send it by SMS or WhatsApp, and we will discuss that case. We will discuss that case in that. So how to approach, what is the steps which we can do, how to manage that, you know, or there may be some people who are already on medicines. So we can plan like that. So you can bring up all your liver cases which you are there, liver patient whom you are, you know, following in your clinic. You can send it as, you know, 5 or 6 line sentences. You can send it up, and, you know, we can sort it out topic wise, and we'll definitely we can discuss it.
Thank you very much. Nice having you all on a Sunday. This was our first initiative. We appreciate your time to spend with us, and we hope this will prove to be of use to many people in the future. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.